Today we are looking at the Blackmagic Pocket 6K Pro and 6 reasons why I still think it's worth picking up in 2023. First off is BRAW, and to be honest, it is still by far the best editing experience out of any of the codecs or RAWs out there, maybe other than Red, although of course if you're going down the Red route, you're spending a lot more on the camera itself. Certainly in the price bracket that this camera is in, it is far better than what the competition offer. Yes, you can record externally RAW on things like the Atomos, but that can be quite fiddly and frustrating to do and really isn't as nice as having something that's built in. It just plays back so much smoother on DaVinci Resolve, obviously because they designed the entire workflow from the camera to the codec all the way through to the actual editing software. It just makes it such a great integrated experience, and of course gives you a massive amount of flexibility, being able to adjust the white balance, the ISO, all in post, just giving you so much more options when it comes to the actual color grading. Second up is the image quality, and despite being a few years old, this is certainly, I still think, one of the leaders when it comes to image quality of pretty much any camera out there. Not just in the mirrorless world or in the sub 2,500, but anything really in sub 10K. I think this very much competes with those other cameras. The dynamic range might not be quite as good as cameras like the Canon C70 or the Sony FX3. However, it's the highlight roll-off that's really special, I think, with the image that the 6K can produce. It also produces a very nice sharp image, but that doesn't look over sharpened like we see sometimes on mirrorless cameras. That's a wonderful balance to have. Having a high detailed image but not looking over sharpened is something that's really quite difficult to get in any other camera system. I just love the colors it can produce as well, straight in camera. It feels like you just chuck it into the timeline, whether you're using the wide gamut or putting a LUT or whatever you're doing, and just instantly it looks great without any need of adjustment. But of course you've got that RAW in there too, so when you do need to adjust the image, whether you need to mix maybe different white balances in the same scene, you can have full flexibility and get it just right. The third reason is the full cinema camera features that this camera has. Once again, in this price bracket, it is quite rare to see. Panasonic do a pretty good job. They add a lot of features to their cameras, but still not quite as good as what Blackmagic do in this price bracket. You've got things like false color, of course you've got your shutter angle, you've got the traffic light system like you see in the Reds. So many useful features built into the camera that is great for when you're doing cinematography. I've mentioned this many times before, but the screen on this camera is still second to none. It isn't perfect, but it's certainly a lot better than any other screen that I've seen on any other camera. It's bigger, it's brighter, it's the one screen you can actually use out in daylight and you can judge focus on. And that is just incredible. It does obviously have a negative effect on the size of the camera, but still, no one has come close to the screen offering that Blackmagic have put onto one of these cameras. I hope one day that someone else is going to at least add a 4-inch screen with the same sort of detail and brightness that this camera offers. But for now, it seems to be Blackmagic are the only ones giving us these really nice big bright screens, which allows you to work with the camera without needing to add an external monitor. One of the biggest frustrations of using a mirrorless camera is the fact that you don't have built-in ND filters. Constantly screwing them on the front is really annoying. And well, that is one thing the Blackmagic Pocket 6K Pro has, is those built-in NDs. For me, the built-in NDs are totally worth it over the G2 camera. It adds so much flexibility and functionality to this camera, and is a big reason why I would still recommend people go for the Pro over the G2. Now, they're not perfect. There is definitely a color shift when you go to the strongest ND, but that's not a massive issue thanks to the built-in RAW that the Blackmagic camera has. Finally, the Blackmagic Pocket 6K Pro just doesn't require any rigging, and that is just so nice. It saves you so much time because of the screen, because of the built-in ND. It just means that you can use this camera as is. The battery life could be better, and it would be great if it had a longer battery life, but it does last long enough for most shoot situations. It's not like before with the Pocket 4Ks, which was absolutely terrible. With this camera, I haven't even bothered to purchase a cage. I find that it works absolutely fine as it is, and because I keep it bare, it means I can actually get it on the gimbal fairly easy as well. Now, of course, this camera isn't perfect, and there are many other options out there that do actually improve on some of the functionality compared to the Blackmagic Pocket 6K Pro. These alternatives include things like the Sony FX30, a much cheaper camera which has better autofocus. For a bit more, you have the Panasonic S5 II, and of course that adds a full frame option, as well as things like Open Gate, which is a really nice feature if you like to do anamorphic shooting, or even for certain social media as well. Being able to use the full height of the sensor can be extremely useful. Then there's the Sony a7 IV, which I've done a couple of videos that I've compared the two against each other, and that is a good shout for a lot of people out there who just need a camera that is a true hybrid. It is a brilliant photography camera, and it is a brilliant video camera as well. If you want to spend a bit more, of course, there's the Sony FX3, and it's much more compact. It's got that same body size as the FX30. It's got better battery life than the Pocket 6K Pro, full frame and higher frame rates, up to 120 frames per second, and much better in low light as well. Finally, there is of course the Canon C70, quite a bit more than the Pocket 6K Pro, but still quite comparable in many ways. It's larger, but it's the nearest camera in its price bracket to have built-in ND filters. It also can shoot RAW, although it's certainly a lot less flexible than BRAW. So who do I think this camera is for in 2023? For me, it's anyone that wants to do commercial filmmaking or doing sort of narrative projects like a short film, or if you're doing something like a music video. They're scenarios I think this camera will work really nicely in, where you have a bit more control over the scene, where manual focus won't be an issue, where file size won't necessarily be an issue either. Any situation where you need the ultimate image quality, but you still have a bit of a budget limitation, then I think the Pocket 6K Pro is absolutely perfect for it. If you're mostly doing corporate work though, I probably wouldn't go with this camera, and I'd probably look at other options like the FX3, the C70, and the a7 IV instead. Mainly because if you're doing a lot of interviews or running around a lot, the features such as a more compressed codec, having autofocus, having a smaller body, and having better battery life overall I think is more useful than the ability to shoot RAW, having built-in NDs and having that large daylight viewable screen. It really does come up a balance between those two depending on which way you want to go. So this is still a great camera to pick up in 2023. However, there may be one reason why you shouldn't get one, and that is the rumours of an update coming very soon. In fact, I've done a video talking about the rumours as well as the wish list that I hope to see in that new camera.